Shane Steichen has been officially introduced as the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts. And boy, it was a fun press conference to watch. And if you missed it, that's what we're here for, to talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined by my co-host and colleague at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, we're past the head coaching search finally. Shane Steichen spoke to the fan base. It was only about a half hour or so press conference, but man, we had emotion, we had a lot of information, and we're going to dissect it all tonight. How you doing, brother? It's good to see you.
Man, I'm doing great. There's a lot different mood now that a coach is in the building, and especially one that is as highly thought of across the NFL as Shane Steichen, offensive mind, as you and Jake have said so much, forward thinking offensive mind. So I'm excited to watch the press conference again. I don't even care.
Yeah, we're going to dive through it, and of course, we're going to talk to everybody in the chat, get everybody's reaction. Wyatt Law already cracking jokes here. He put that comment in at 2:20 this afternoon about the Colts Bears exploring a trade. Hey Wyatt, hope you're at here live watching. Good to see you. JB said interesting. I think he was talking about Wyatt Law. JB, you got to understand Wyatt Law is a jokester, so he's not gonna talk. He's gonna throw things in there like that. Stats Matt saying, Andrew, I know it's Daytona week, but you got a show to do. It is. The duels are on right now. If anyone knows me, yes, I talk about the Colts for a living, but my first love, and it will always be my first love, is NASCAR. So thankfully, Chase Elliott's in the second duel a little bit later tonight, so I'll get to catch that. Go number 9. Stormy, great to see you again. Looking forward to yet another great podcast. Always love when you join the show. Freddie, give a shout out to the Franklin boys. Always love to see you there. And then no horsing around. Showing love. Great to see you. So before we dive in, we'll let everybody get in the chat, get all settled in before we talk about this press conference. But if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe. Well, what are you waiting for? We're now over 700 subscribers and climbing rapidly. Remember, as soon as we get over 1,000, old boy is going Chrome Dome for good. So go ahead and subscribe and like us and all the things. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Go ahead and follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that bell. So to make sure you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Shad and Destin are going live, they had their first show last night. So it's going well here at Horseshoe Huddle, and we've got a lot to talk about. Sarah saying Napa know-how, love Chase. I'm pumped as a Colts fan. Sarah, you and I would get along great. Colts loyalist, the future looks bright. So we're definitely going to dive into all this, Drake. So it started out, the press conference started out pretty emotional, in my opinion. Shane Steichen, definitely he might come from the Frank Reich tree, but it seems like it's going to be a different vibe and a little bit different culture around the Colts locker room with Shane Steichen as the head man.
Well, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I had seen and kind of understood a little bit that Steichen had the emotional side to him, but man, I'll be honest. I'm an emotional guy myself, and it was hard not to watching that live. I was like, I kind of wanted to tear
got a little
myself.
Dusty in there. Got a little dusty in that
got
room.
A little dusty in there, but you know what, man? It was awesome. It was good to see it was good to see that emotional rush, definitely approaching, that press conference. Shane Steichen was, he thanked everybody. He thanked his family. He named each individual player that he coached, all the way down to Gardner freaking Minshew. Okay. I mean, even Isaac Samalo, who might even not be an Eagle next season, who's the right guard. I mean, he really, really loves football, loves the players individually. And he said, and I quote, "It's all about the players. It will always be about the players." So I'm telling you, this is a guy that is ready to go. He's ready to fire away.
Stats Matt saying, "Don't ask Doyle about the emotion. If only Brandon was here to break that down." If you follow us from a Colts podcast days, you know exactly how Brandon Moses feels about Greg Doyle. So, but hey, Drake, it got a little musty for you then. It might get a little musty for you now because we're gonna play the opening statement from Shane Steichen's presser on Tuesday, and it's about 3.5 minutes long. But everybody, take this in and just listen to the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts.
Start, first off, I'm extremely honored and grateful to be the next head football coach of the Indianapolis Colts. I would like to start by thanking Mr. Irsay for believing in me and giving me this opportunity, and I look forward to working with you and building something special here. Thank you to the rest of the Irsay family, Carly, Casey, and Kaylin, for this unbelievable opportunity. I will forever be grateful to you and your family. Thank you to Chris Ballard and the rest of the Colts organization. Again, I'm beyond grateful and can't wait to work with you and the rest of the personnel department. Thank you to the Chargers organization and the Spanos family for a great 8 years together. Thank you to Mr. Lurie and the Eagles organization for the past 2 seasons. I will always be grateful for those memories and friendships that I'll cherish forever. I can't say enough good things about what a great organization Mr. Lurie and his staff has put together there. Just a tremendous place and a first-class operation. I'd like to thank my high school coach, Chris Jones. Thank you for teaching me the game and making me foster a love for the game. I will forever be grateful for you and our friendship. Thank you to Norv Turner, my biggest mentor. I appreciate you taking the chance on me back in 2011 and hiring me to work on the defensive side of the ball and seeing it from that point of view. I will be forever grateful for you and the things you've taught me along the way and will continue to teach me. Thank you to Mike McCoy for believing in me and giving my first-time full-time gig as the quarterback coach of the Chargers. Thank you to Anthony Lynn for believing in me to be your offensive coordinator. Thank you to Nick Sirianni. I appreciate everything you've done as a head football coach. It was a pleasure to work with you again these past 2 seasons. It was a hell of a ride and one I'll cherish forever. But more importantly, the friendship that we built over the last 9 years. Thank you. Thank you to the players I've had the privilege to be around and coach. Thank you to Phillip Rivers. I can't say enough about how much you've had impact on me as a coach. So many great memories together, and couldn't be more thankful for our friendship. Thank you to Antonio Gates, Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert, and most recently, thank you to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Quez Watkins, Zach Pascal, Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, Kenny Gainwell, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, Isaac Suamala, Lane Johnson, Ian Book, Gardner Minshew, and last but not least, Jalen Hurts. Thank you to each and every single one of you guys. I would not be sitting here today if it wasn't for you. It's all about the players, and it'll always be about the players. And I will be forever grateful for you guys, and I wish you guys all the best going forward. I'd like to thank my family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, for your guys' support on my journey. I love you guys. And lastly, thank you to my beautiful wife, Nina, and our 2 kids, Hudson and Stella. Thank you for sacrificing everything you do, day in and day out, so I can live out my dream. I love you guys, more than you know.
That was Shane Steichen, the new head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and buddy, that was passion right there. I know Greg Doyle said that you could be he could be an emotional basket case, but in my opinion, that wasn't him being an emotional basket case. That was him showing that he has worked his entire life to get to this point. What do you say, Drake?
You could, I go right back to it. He went all the way back to the people that he started coaching with. Like, I think he's been doing this for like 12 or 13 years in the NFL. And so he said, thank you to the Chargers organization for 8 great years together. I mean, he laid it all out there. I mean, so my favorite part again is when he individually listed every single player, even going back to the Chargers organization. So it really meant a lot to him to get up there to be able to be at a press conference with his friends, with his family, with players watching. I mean, I remember watching Quentin Nelson walk in there. Michael Pittman Jr. walked in there. I mean, the guys he's going to coach, he addressed directly, and they got to see who their next coach is. And that emotion, boy, it's hard to not admit that's infectious. If you're a Colts fan, that should be something that gets you absolutely excited, for the 2023 season and what he can do with the young quarterback. So I personally loved that opening statement. It was my favorite part of the whole press conference. And then Jim Irsay got a hold of the microphone and kind of took a while, but I do love what Shane Steichen did there and what he said in that opening statement for sure.
Absolutely. Patrick says, I thought he was a badass. That's something from what Greg Doyle said. Tim Milliken said, there's no crying in football, but really a 6-year contract with guaranteed millions. I'd be crying tears of joy too. Good to see you, Tim. Yeah, I mean, it just shows the passion that Shane Steichen has. Not to say that Frank Reich didn't have passion, but it seems like this guy wears his heart on his sleeve a little bit more. He's got a guy that's going to try to galvanize this locker room, which I think this team needs. I think this is exactly the type of coach that this Colts team needs now and in the future. So, but then Steichen, after that, he collected himself, and then we got talking about the football, what he wants to do for this team. As Noah Compton, good to see you, says, I love the raw emotion from Shane Steichen. This may be over dramatic, but I think I'd die for that man. I think a lot of Colts fans
awesome.
were pumped up. Stats Matt said, all that aside, the video the Colts put out before his presser showed his coaching style, and I'm pumped. A lot of Colts fans are feeling this way. And Colts loyalist says, emotions help some through the tough times. I would 100% agree. So as he did get settled in, he talked about, coaches always talk about what they want to change, what they want to build their foundation on. And Shane Steichen said that, talking about the 4 pillars that he wanted to build this team around. And this is what he said.
This thing on 4 pillars. Our culture is going to be built on 4 pillars, and one's going to be character. Character is very important to me. We want to treat people with respect, and we want to feed the positive and weed out the negative. And number 2 is the preparation. I truly believe this. The separation in this league is in the preparation. How we prepare as a football team and an organization Monday through Saturday will ultimately dictate the outcome of a football game. Now, is it going to guarantee us a victory? No, but it's going to give us a fighting chance. I promise you that. And number 3 is consistency. We got to be consistent, and it starts with us as coaches, being consistent with our message to the players and telling them exactly how we want it to look and how we want it to be done. And number 4 is relentless. We got to be relentless in our pursuit to be the best. The best players, the best coaches I've been around are obsessed with their craft, and that's what we want to build here, and that's what we want to get done.
He just speaks with such conviction on all of this, and you can tell he's not here to mess around. He is here to win football games, and I think he's got a good shot of doing that.
Well, and I'm gonna, because everybody's been talking about those 4 pillars. Everybody's been, talking about how he does not need to say much. Every single word, like you said, it has such a great amount of weight, and it really means a lot. But I'm telling you, especially of course, Frank Reich, 4.5 loyal years to the organization. What a coach. Carolina's going to do fantastic things. But this is a guy who was way more reserved. And then with the craziness that happened, to have a guy that comes in and not only has that drive, that energy that Jeff Saturday had, that mind that Frank Reich has, but he also has one of the most highly sought after offensive schemes and offensive thinking ways in the entire NFL. And you have a bunch of young players on the offensive side of the ball and the defense, but he's mostly concerned with that offensive side of the ball. I'm telling you, if you're a sophomore guy like Alec Pierce, Jelani Woods, you need to get freaking pumped. Look at what he did with guys like Devontae Smith, guys like AJ Brown, guys like Dallas Goedert. It's that emotional conviction that you talked about that I think is really going to take their sophomore campaigns and put them through the stratosphere of potential, of course, because you don't know what could happen. But I mean, if you're going into your sophomore season with the Colts, you need to be very pumped for this guy to coach you. That's my opinion.
There's just a different vibe around Shane Steichen. There really is. And players a lot of times talked about how Jeff Saturday, he came in, and the thing they asked what has improved, he said, well, he's holding players accountable. It seems like Shane Steichen is going to hold everybody accountable in that locker room. And that was something that players didn't really necessarily like about Frank Reich, is his tendency not to call out the best players when they weren't performing up to their standards. I don't see that being the case with Shane Steichen. And he's not going to call him out, and he's not going to dog people in front of the media, but this is going to be a tougher team. And with how last season ended, this team could use a little toughening up in a sense. So my beautiful mother saying so happy for him. I wish I could have given him a Kleenex. I think he definitely needed a tissue. I think just to blow that schnoz.
I wish Ursay just would have been like, you just would have seen a hand go.
Or just Ursay gives him $100 bill and says, here, blow your nose with this. I got plenty of it. So the Common Colt podcast, keep up the great work, fellas. We appreciate it. If you I've watched your guys' show, go check it out. It's a great show. Stats Matt, back to that video, him trying to still coach footwork of Phillip Rivers in week 16 shows what he cares about. Noah Compton, first pillar being culture, could not be more on brand with how the Ballard era has been ran. Love to see it. And they did talk about how Chris Ballard mentioned how Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard view the game the same way. They're not always going to agree, but their priorities are aligned. And I think that's something that's going to be key for this regime moving forward. And that kind of moves us into our next point here, as Shane Steichen kind of talked about his philosophy. And I already see Stats Matt in the chat saying pass to score, run to win. Awesome. And he spoke about that right here.
Offense is this, and it's going to look different each week, but my philosophy is we're going to throw to score points in this league and run to win. We're going to throw to score points and run to win. Now, that could look different each week. Sometimes I went into games like, hey, we're going to throw it a bunch, and then we end up running it 45 times. So the flow is going to dictate that. I know we got some pieces in place to get that done, and we should be ready to roll.
Now, Drake, I know you're a run the damn ball kind of guy. What do you think about Shane Steichen's offensive philosophy?
Well, I kind of want to quote you on a previous episode of Locked On with Jake Arthur. You said that kind of like Kyle Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan makes running the ball look pretty. That's kind of how Shane Steichen can
also look pretty sexy running the ball.
Very, 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 intricate and ballet-like almost, when it's supposed to be this gritty, blood, busted nose style kind of thing that the Colts previously had. I'm telling you, I absolutely loved hearing that, because when playoff time comes, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know that in the Super Bowl we saw something different, but that's rare that you see that kind of passing attack constantly from both teams. You run the ball to win. You run the ball to win in the playoffs. It's the most brutal ground game usually that can just wear down defenses and beat them down throughout the entire game. But I do also like that he emphasized you need to pass the ball as well, because the Colts valiantly struggled doing that. And I think that he's going to bring a nice balance to both the receiving core and the running back committee, and also the offensive line, of course, depending on who he brings. But I absolutely loved that. And it reminds me of something similar to, I mean, this is a stretch, but Notre Dame's play like a champion today. They need to put that right above wherever the Colts are walking at, and have each one of those dudes slap that. I absolutely love that quote. It needs to go somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it's I think we're going to see a much more aggressive Colts offense in terms of going for it on fourth down, but as well as to start the game. I mean, if you look at the Eagles offense, they were very pass heavy to begin the game. And then once they got out to a big lead, that's when they used the running game to seal it. And so Shane Steichen, he's not only talking the talk, but he's proved that he walks the walk, as far as we're going to come out and be aggressive. We're going to get a lead. We're going to score a ton of points. And then we're going to ice this thing with the best running back in the league in Jonathan Taylor. As Freddie Williams says, I see JT having another great rushing season this year. I think Jonathan Taylor is in line for that, especially if they can get this offensive line back into shape. If JT can be healthy all season, combine that with how Zach Moss finished out the year, Deion Jackson, I fully expect the Colts Colts to add another running back, whether it's free agency, but more likely on day 3 of the draft. And I think this running game can be a huge weapon for this Colts offense, not only to help win games, but take pressure off of that rookie quarterback that's going to be coming in as well. And because you're not going to be able to, like I've said numerous times already, there is no Andrew Luck in this class. You're not going to be able to rely on a quarterback to throw it, a rookie quarterback, 55 times and expect to win. You're going to need to give that guy some help as he adjusts to the pro game.
Well, and I got to say this too. I look forward to Taylor not having to in 2021. Look, was he incredible? Yes, but the wear and tear of 25, 30 touches a game, that's real. You saw it with Derrick Henry too. Even as fearsome as he is, it's like tackling a bull. Well, a bull means nothing if its knee is shot. So I look forward to Shane Steichen, of course, maximizing Jonathan Taylor, but also getting a little bit more of a snap count to Zach Moss, potentially Deion Jackson, potentially number 4 guy, whoever that may be. You need to try at this point and going into year 4 of Jonathan Taylor's career, you need to try to kind of maybe dial it back a little bit. And I think you might maximize his efficiency with every snap he's in there. Is he still going to get most of the snaps, be in there most of the time? Of course, but it'll be nice to not have to shoulder the entire offense on his back like in 2021 when they had Wentz.
Right. And Freddie Williams asked, why did Nyheim Hines want to leave? Was it because of the offensive line? I really don't think it was because of the offensive line. I think it was because Nyheim Hines was kind of sick and tired of going through the quarterback carousel. He wanted a bigger role. The Colts weren't really using him as up to his ability or as much as they should have been probably. And he just wanted to be in a different place where he could experience winning ball. And I think Nyheim Hines had just kind of was finally tired of it. And because Nyheim was such a good locker room guy, was a guy that accepted his role and really did everything that the Colts asked him to do, Chris Ballard, as a courtesy, facilitated that trade for him so Nyheim could go to a different team, such as the Buffalo Bills, and continue his career there. But Drake, what we've been talking about head coach all off season, but at the end of the day, we know that the biggest decision that this franchise will make this entire offseason is the quarterback position. And Shane Steichen was asked, what does he look for in a quarterback? And he was pretty direct in what he's looking at and gave some clues of probably what the Colts will be looking for from these rookies as far as who they're going to select. Take a listen.
I think accuracy, decision-making, and the ability to create are the 3 things that I look at in a quarterback. I think all 3 things are very important, but obviously above the neck, I think that, the players that I've been around, Jalen Hurts and Justin Herbert and Phillip Rivers, they all have one thing in common. They're obsessed with their craft. And if you can find that in a quarterback, you're probably going to have some success.
So accuracy, decision-making, the ability to create, and the obsession with their craft. Those are the 4 traits that he specifically mentioned for a quarterback. Now, we know Shane Steichen has worked with Phillip Rivers, Justin Herbert, and Jalen Hurts, and he's been able to tailor the offense to all 3 of them. But Drake, when you hear those 4 qualities, which of the top 4 quarterbacks in this year's draft class, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, whatever order you have them in, who do you think matches those 4 qualities the best and why?
Well, I can't go with my love. I want Anthony Richardson. I'm a huge Anthony Richardson guy. But look, if we're talking about all 4 of those traits, it's CJ Stroud. It's definitely CJ Stroud, perhaps Bryce Young. I think that those 2 embody that. And that's the second time he said obsession with your craft. So that means to me, if he emphasized with as few words as this guy used and as heavy as those words are, if he's going to repeat something a second time when asked a different question, that to me tells me that's probably the most important thing to him is, are you obsessed with with developing yourself? And of course, all 4 of these guys, whether it's Young, Levis, Stroud, or Richardson, they are probably going to be obsessed with it. But if we're talking right out of the gate, who's the best fit for all 4 of those qualities? It's probably CJ Stroud, in my opinion.
I tweeted it right after Steichen said it. I said, to me, this screams Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. Both of them are probably the 2 most accurate quarterbacks in this class. The decision making to both of them are tops in this class. The ability to create, we know Bryce Young can do it. We've seen CJ Stroud do it on the biggest stage against the best defense in college football. And then the obsession with the craft. I would say all four of those guys have the obsession with their craft, as far as Will Levis, Anthony Richardson to go with Young and Stroud. I just, but when you're talking about the accuracy, and this is something that Chris Ballard has always said too, is accuracy is number one when looking at these quarterbacks. Yes, you can have a cannon for an arm, but if you're not able to deliver the ball accurately on time and in the right spot for your receiver to get it, that big arm does nothing for you. So and Chris Ballard has said in the past too, once things get murky in that pocket, when things don't exactly go as planned and you're not an accurate quarterback, you can work on your mechanics all you want, but a lot of times players tend to revert back to what feels natural to them, which gives you a little bit of worry about guys like Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. But so I think as of right now, you can probably pencil in it's going to be either Bryce Young or CJ Stroud as far as who Steichen wants. When you're looking at Ballard, it's probably going to be maybe on the side of CJ Stroud or Will Levis because of those high end traits. So it's going to be interesting to see. We're going to talk about quarterbacks for 2 months. The combine is in a couple weeks, and we're going to talk a lot about them then. Stats Matt says that I think Levis, Stroud, and Young fit 3. Richardson fits 2. And then he said the obsession thing makes me think of Levis because Levis does. Freddie Williams, having said that Young is only 5'10" and way too short for today's quarterbacks, it is going to be interesting to see what Bryce Young measures in at the combine, because he was listed at Alabama as 6 foot and 194 pounds. A lot of people don't think he's going to measure in at 6 foot and 194 pounds. He's going to measure in less than that. So that's going to be huge for his draft stock. Camden, you may be late to the party, brother, but we always accept you. Good to see you. Tim Milliken said obsession with the craft has a whole other meaning in the tailgate lots. Absolutely, Tim. Drake and I have had plenty of our fun in tailgate lots with an obsession with our craft before. Freddie asks, is there any quarterback that isn't in the top 4 that the Colts may have an eye on? Honestly, at this point, I don't think so. I think it's going to be either Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, or Anthony Richardson. At this point, when you're drafting that high in the draft, you can't gamble with the quarterback position. You go with the best, you think who is the best option for your team, and I think it's going to be one of those 4. Drake, what do you think?
I agree 100%. And if there's one more reason why they're going to draft one of those 4, it's because of, I believe it's 9 starters over the course of 5 years, 5 day 1 starters, no consistency at all. I mean, you can say all you want about, I understand Frank Reich had a little bit of a tumultuous time. I do always think, though, in the back of my mind, what would have happened if he would have been able to get a quarterback even after Luck retired, that would have stuck around, and some of those receivers, and, maybe they would have played better. Maybe the Colts would have done better. So absolutely, you're going to get a franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that some of these other guys that are going to fall later in the draft, guys like Duggan, guys like Hooker, they're not going to do well, but you got to get a franchise quarterback. You cannot miss it. No more excuses. Go get him, and go get him as soon as the draft is there.
Stats Matt says they said they aren't waiting past 4 and Hooker isn't worthy of that. Yes.
It's true.
Hendon Hooker is going to be a day 2 pick because of that injury. I don't even know if he'd be in the first round with if the injury didn't happen. He's an older prospect and still has a long way to go. So if I had to put money on it right now, I would say that on April 27th, CJ Stroud will probably be the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. But hey, we're still 2 months away. A lot can change. But we got one more clip here to give you guys tonight, and I think it's fitting because it kind of shows what matters to Shane Steichen and why he got into coaching. And it also answers the question of, is he going to call plays, or will his offensive coordinator call plays? Let's take a look.
I will call the plays here. Obviously the offense is going to be dictated on who's playing quarterback. That's how you build the system. What does he do well? What is their strengths? But not only just the quarterback, it's the players too. What does Pittman run well, receiver-wise? The tight ends, the backs, Jonathan Taylor, the offensive line, what do they do well? We want to do a hell of a job of trying to put our guys in position to make plays.
Drake, you just talked about it literally minutes ago about him mentioning players directly. What does that tell you about Shane Steichen's coaching style, and what glimpse does it give you about what this offense is going to look like come this fall?
Well, I go back to the Eagles and what they looked like when he was tasked with calling the plays. Aggressive, efficient, wide open lanes. I understand we need to put this disclaimer out. Are the Colts talented? Yes. Are they probably closer to success than what everyone thought before? Yes. But do they have the Eagles talent level? No, they do not. Okay. And so I still think that he is going to definitely increase the efficiency of the entire offense. But the fact that he brought out Jonathan Taylor's name, that tells me that he's really focusing on, we need to get Jonathan Taylor back to where he was. We need to, keep him healthy. Don't, get him past the line of scrimmage before he gets hit, kind of thing. And I also think that him taking on the play calling duties, anything can happen, as we saw with Sirianni. But I do think that he really wants to take that philosophy that he saw or that he had success with in Philly. I think he watched plenty of Colts tape. Okay. He also called the plays against the Colts when he was in Lucas Oil Stadium. And he probably saw how absolutely mediocre that offense was. They couldn't move the ball downfield. Then they couldn't run the ball. And then you had a statue in Matt Ryan who also couldn't throw the ball. So he's thinking to himself subliminally, this is just an opinion, I'm going to take what made me successful in Philadelphia and everywhere else, and I'm going to apply that here because the weapons are there. Woods, Pierce, Pittman Jr., Campbell, if he retains, all the weapons are there. You just got to use them correctly.
Right, and not only did he mention Jonathan Taylor, but he mentioned Michael Pittman by name. He wants to get Pittman the ball and get Pittman the ball often. And I think whoever quarterback the Colts draft, that's going to be the number one priority, is making sure that quarterback and Michael Pittman are on the same page, and they're on the same page very, very quickly. But from what it tells me is that Shane Steichen, and this is what makes good coaches great in the NFL, they don't make the players adjust to their scheme. They adjust their scheme to the players that they have, to put the players in the best position to win. You're not trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. You are forming that hole around that peg for that player to go in and succeed. And I think that's exactly what Shane Steichen is going to do. Whatever quarterback that the Colts end up choosing, they're going to fit the offense around their strengths. This is what Frank Reich did with Andrew Luck and Phillip Rivers. He found what they did best, what they were most comfortable doing, and then they used that and tried to exploit that against other defenses. Rich Wheeler asked a good question. I actually just wrote a piece on this today. What did you make of Irsay throwing Nate Young's name out there? So smoke screen or not? Honestly, I think it's Jim Irsay being Jim Irsay. We all know that Bryce Young is a very talented quarterback. However, is Bryce Young the number one quarterback for the Colts? Could be. But my guess is he's probably just saying that Bryce Young is a good quarterback and living in the moment. What do you say, Drake?
I think Jim Irsay, I think that you saw a frustrated, pissed off Jim Irsay this last season. I think the Jim Irsay that you saw at the press conference, yes, did he kind of ramble on and you're just like, all right, Jim, let's get to the point here. That's just typical Jim Irsay, but he was lighthearted. He was happy. You could tell he was a little bit more upbeat. And so he was just talking. He was just having a good time up there. I don't think it's a smokescreen. I also don't think it's a lead. I just think, like you said, it's just a comment coming out of as Pat McAfee says, a billionaire hippie musician's mouth. So it's a guy who's just really, I think, excited to finally have some stability at head coach. They inked him in for a 6-year contract, and excited to have a future signal caller that's going to stick around for more than 2 years.
Right. And Stats Matt said Irsay has said some weird stuff about our draft strategy before the draft in the past. That wasn't necessarily what we did. Again, take very little stock into what Jim Irsay says.
Yeah, don't look too far into it.
Tim Milliken asks, is Coach another hyper analytics guy like Frank the Tank was? He does use analytics quite a bit. Am I say is he going to go with what it says all the time? No, because Shane Steichen has even said, I go with more my gut feeling. I'm a gut feeling kind of guy. Whether what the analytics say or not, that's what I do. So you can probably see him going on the analytics side and being aggressive, but there may be times that he doesn't. It's just going to be up to his discretion. Stats Matt also said he mentioned, like I said, Jonathan Taylor, Ryan Kelly, Quentin Nelson, Michael Pittman. He did mention those names as cornerstones and pieces here when he was talking to Lara Overton, JJ Stefanski, and Matt Taylor of the Colts. So keep an eye on those players. People have talked about possibly cutting Ryan Kelly. Maybe that changes things. My mom asked, what do you think will happen with Matt Ryan this year? Matt Ryan's as good as gone. Matt Ryan will not be on this team come late March. Before he is due he's already guaranteed $18 million next year, no matter if he plays for the Colts or not. If he is still on the roster past the third day of the league year, which I think is around March 17th, around the middle of March, the rest of his contract, 17 million more, becomes guaranteed after that. So he will be cut before that comes about. But that's it for us on the Shane Steichen presser. Hope you guys enjoy the film clips or the video clips of the presser. If you did, let me know in the comments, because maybe we'll do this next time when Ballard has his press conference, or we'll keep throwing these in here. But I think it was fun to kind of watch and really took in those be able to share that with you guys. So that way we're not trying to recall this from memory. We can actually see it on the screen. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. And I think we're all pretty fired up to have Shane Steichen as the new head coach for the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, and just to, like I said, I'm kind of an emotional guy too. So there's a reason that that old Philly Rivs is over there on my wall. Okay, like I really like the way that he brought that fire at quarterback, and I think that it's going to really behoove the Colts to be able to have a guy that everyone talked about. Oh, Jeff Saturday, accountability, energy. Well, now you get that, plus a brilliant offensive mind, plus a guy who's got a proven track record with quarterbacks, plus a guy who's been to the Super Bowl. Plus, lastly, a guy who turned an entire offense around from having to rely just on the pass and not being able to run the ball. So I think that you have got a serious leader here who is going to truly be able to develop at a rapid rate a rookie quarterback, regardless of whoever it is. He's going to maximize their strengths for sure.
As Tim Milliken says, don't you dare start crying, Drake.
Tim,
don't
dare. Don't even bring it up, man. You're
and that's the Burger Podcast, which Drake had an appearance on. So go check that out. He said we got the pillars to hold us up. So it's gonna be fun. Now the next step for Shane Steichen is building the coaching staff that he's going to bring along with him next year, and he's already getting after it as far as trying to build that staff. As we move into the latest Colts news and rumors here, and it was reported today by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport that the Colts requested to interview Jaguars passing game coordinator Jim Bob Cooter for their vacant offensive coordinator position. I know what everyone's thinking. That's a hell of a name. And if you aren't familiar with him, Jim Bob Cooter has been in the NFL since 2009. Actually got his start with the Indianapolis Colts as an offensive assistant under Jim Caldwell. He's bounced around a little bit. He was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions from 2016 through 2018. But Drake, what do you think about Jim Bob Cooter and his chances to be the next offensive coordinator for the Indianapolis Colts?
Regardless of how absolutely amazing his name is, I'll tell you right now, he's got a long resume. He's worked as an offensive assistant with the Colts, quality control for the Chiefs, offensive assistant for the Broncos, quarterbacks, offensive coordinator for the Lions, running backs coach for the Jets, consultant for the Eagles, and this is my most important thing that I think everyone should look at. He was the passing game coordinator for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That was the season, obviously, Trevor Lawrence decided to turn around and light up the entire division, go to the playoffs, win in the playoffs, by the way, narrowly he was pretty close to, I mean, he stayed right on Patrick Mahomes' tail. So I'm telling you right now, this is a very overlooked guy that I think could really assist with that development while Steichen is, I mean, obviously Steichen's going to be very focused on the quarterback, but man, Jim Bob is an absolutely amazing I think name that could really spark some fire for a rookie quarterback, whomever that may be. I like it. I really do.
Stats Matt says he had as much success as you can in Detroit with Stafford. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that Jim Bob Cooter is a legitimate candidate for the offensive coordinator job. We'll have to see who else the Colts request, but it does seem like they are getting after it quickly. They want to create and build that staff as quickly as they can now to make sure everyone's on the same page, everyone's in the building. It still looks like there hasn't been confirmation, but I think at this point it's safe to say that there's a really good chance Gus Bradley and the whole defensive staff are back. Bubba Ventrone and the entire special team staff are back. So they're really focusing in on the offensive portion of the coaching staff to really fill out the unit. But we got one more piece of news today. The Colts claimed wide receiver Christian Wilkerson off of waivers from the Patriots. He's a wide receiver that's I think he's 6'1", 205 pounds. So he fits the height weight requirement that Chris Bauer likes in his receivers. But he in 3 games last year with the Patriots, he had 4 catches for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is I think just a move to bring another wide receiver in, probably someone that's going to be a camp body to try out for the team. What do you think, Drake?
I think it's a depth piece. Kind of like you said, I think it's somebody that if you know, hey, we need to turn to this guy, maybe he's going to have a little bit more experience and, he's going to be able to train and kind of go through training camp and everything up against a great secondary, by the way, still for the Colts. So he comes from, regardless of what Colts fans think about Belichick, look, he comes from the New England Patriots. And I'm telling you, man, that's a very illustrious franchise. So he understands success. He understands pushing himself. And I think that while it is a depth piece, I mean, you have no idea what that could turn into. I mean, he might be able to finally show his true potential. But at the end of the day, I think if we're being realistic, maybe a practice squad player, maybe a wide receiver 6, somebody again on the roster that can maybe help with red zone opportunities. Because again, 2 out of his 4 catches were touchdowns. So it could be something like that.
Yeah, we'll have to see. He'll have to prove it come training camp. But hey, that's our show tonight, guys. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you enjoyed viewing those press conference clips that we put together and discussing it with us. It looks like the Colts have a very good head coach in Shane Steichen, ready to take this team into the future. But hey, hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Appreciate you all being here as always. Stats Matt, Colts loyalist, Tim Milliken, Freddie Williams, Taryn. Let's go through Wyatt Law, the Burger Podcast, just all of you guys, Stormy, my mother, all of you guys joining in tonight. It was great to see you. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and look at the ticker down there. Go ahead and like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook. Follow at Colts on FN on Twitter. Subscribe and hit that bell so you know whenever Drake and I are going live, whenever Des are going live, because we are pumping out content like crazy. And even on the YouTube, if you're not on the YouTube site, go ahead and check out horseshoehuddle.com, where we had seven new pieces out today. Drake, what have you been working on? I know you've been diligently writing down there in Indianapolis.
Well, I did release a piece on I believe it was an analyst that put Derek Carr as one of the top 5, number 2 place to land is Indianapolis. So I wrote that. That has been an interesting response from fans. But the one that I really liked writing was the 3 similarities and the 3 differences between Frank Reich and Shane Steichen, because I've heard those names put together a lot. They're not the same guy. They do have similarities, but every coach does. But I think these are 2 different guys with 2 different ways of coaching.
Right, absolutely. Great pieces by Drake there. I've got a few out myself. I know Shane Steichen, just basically a recap of how he tried to sell his vision for the Colts in that presser. Go ahead and check that one out. I talked about what to make of Jim Irsay's comments on Bryce Young. So I went a little bit deeper diving into that, and then a little dive into Jim Bob Cooter and what he and his connection with the Colts. So go ahead and check all those out. Again, we're going to have so much more on the site here in the coming days. And the NFL Combine is right around the corner, and we'll start talking quarterbacks and draft prospects. So go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL, both on Twitter. And now go enjoy your evening. Go watch some NASCAR racing. Go Chase Elliott.
There you go.
And we will be back Monday night to talk some more Colts football with you. So until then, have a good one.